I heard about, maybe it was last year that particularly interested me. I understand Johnny Rods used to try to like recruit you to get into pro wrestling, right?
Yeah, but not aggressively. He always used to say, "Come on, Heather, save that pretty face and come work with me. I'll make you some real money."
So I mean, he's a WWE Hall of Famer. He's known for training like some of the best wrestlers in the world. Was that something that you knew about him ahead of that, or was that just kind of a guy that you would see at the gym when you were going in to train?
Nah, I mean, I work at Gleason's. It's really my home away from home. I mean, on any typical day, I'm there for more than 8 hours, training and working, 8, 9 hours. So I'm around Johnny all the time. I know what he does. But for me, I didn't walk into Gleason's going, "Hey, let's make some money." I went into Gleason's going, "Man, I love to fight." So.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, obviously you've found great success in what you've done, and you've seen all the crossover. Is that something that he has kept on you with as your success has grown in boxing and MMA?
Oh, not at all. Like it was always just like a joke kind of thing. It was never anything seriously where he tried to rip me over to the other side. But he would always say, like, "Whenever you're ready." I know if I knocked on his door, we would have half a conversation, then I'd get started working with him. That's the truth.
Yeah, I
He's
mean,
a great guy.
with your personality and your athleticism, it seemed like a natural fit, and you see that crossover all the time, like Ronda Rousey and people like that making the move. Have you ever had any offers or anybody else like making that effort to try to bring you over to that world?
No, not at all, actually. Not at all. We've been so focused on boxing and MMA, and I have the contracts in both. I mean, to even think of a third sport, I don't know that my management could stand to deal with another.
Well,
The promoter.
obviously you're one of the more widely known success stories crossing over from boxing and MMA. And when you had your first few MMA fights, it was in like rapid succession. You were taking those just like back to back to back. I feel like you had three over the course of maybe 8 or 9 months. How do you feel that that served you for your MMA career? Because you tasted victory, defeat, and then a little bit of reemergence with another victory, all in a very short amount of time.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of like a whirlwind. It was a much-needed time off from boxing. I got to show everybody that you could go back and forth and successfully box, go to MMA, box, come back to MMA. And it was a great experience. I mean, I love to be able to have it on my resume that I get to do all these things, learn all these things, see different places, fight different people, learn different styles. I mean, what's better than that?
At first, when it was kind of decided that you would make that transition to MMA and do that as well, was that your idea, or did somebody come to you and say, "Well, let's give this MMA thing a shot"?
Well, Michael Chandler and I were both signed to a protein company, the same protein company, and it was his manager who had spoke on Bellator being interested in me, and that kind of piqued an interest. I had done amateur kickboxing before I was a boxer, and my boxing coach is a 6th-degree black belt in Kyokushin karate, and it was just like, hey, let's give it a shot. Like, boxing wasn't showing me any love. There were some real down times in my boxing career, disappointing moments, promises that were never made. I saw through, and, you know, at the time I made my MMA debut, I was 35, feeling like I'm not going to be around here doing this forever, so let's just make it happen.
And I know that you were originally supposed to debut for Invicta. Unfortunately, some things prevented that. What kind of relationship did you maintain with them before the Bellator deal? Were you disappointed that you didn't end up making your debut there?
It was disappointing because I had trained really hard. And the truth is that my opponent had dropped out the day before we were set to fly out to, I believe it was Kansas City or whatever. And they wanted to give me a last-minute replacement. And, you know, in boxing, I would have been fine with that because nobody's going to surprise me in a boxing ring. But I really felt like my MMA debut needed to be not a last-minute fly-by-the-seat or kind of I'll put you in with anyone. And when my manager had looked up the opponent they wanted to give me, it was kind of like, come on, you know, this, like, yeah, Heather's got 15 fights, but you're putting her in there with someone with tons of experience, and, you know, it was like a notable name. And we kind of just said absolutely not. Like you know, I'm real self-aware, and I have no problem staying in my lane. I'm great at boxing, but there's a ton of shit in MMA that I have no idea about because I'm still a baby. I'm still like in 1st and 2nd grade here.
So I'm from the middle of nowhere, Kentucky, and I'm getting to know more people from the New York area, and I didn't realize from an outside looking in, there are like Barclays people and there are MSG people. And like some of those people are
Yeah.
really passionate about like where they compete or where they go to shows. I know people who won't go to pro wrestling shows at MSG, they'll wait for the Barclays show. You have fought at Barclays just a ton of times. And of late, you've been fighting at MSG quite a bit. Would you consider yourself an MSG girl or a Barclays girl?
Well, I'm the first lady of Brooklyn boxing. I'll say that first and foremost. Barclays became my home. I was the first female to ever box professionally at the Barclays Center, ever welcomed onto the shows there. I have a good relationship with Brett Yormack, who's the CEO. Invites my daughter to music shows. I got to meet Michelle Obama there. I mean, they treat me as if I'm an employee. So I would never consider myself not a Barclays girl. It's less than a mile from my house. I can jog there. But New York City is my home. You don't have to pick one. That's the beauty of it. Like Billy Joel plays the piano at Madison Square Garden. Who the hell wouldn't want to go there?
Yeah.
Who wouldn't want to fight there? So I'm really fortunate and almost spoiled to be able to say that I've had such an illustrious career fighting at both of the biggest venues in the city.
Are there any other venues in New York that you look at and say, man, even if it's not a traditional like fight venue, and you're like, man, I'd love to perform there, whether it be that or anything else that maybe you haven't?
I'll be honest, I never really gave it much thought because to me, I mean, you're talking about the Mecca of boxing, Madison Square Garden, and the Barclays Center. I was riding the trains watching them build it. I lived in New York before it was there, so I remember when they were building it. I remember seeing signs that Paulie Malignaggi was going to headline the first card there, thinking like, wow, I want to fight there. I want my posters up on the A train going to the Barclays Center one day. And, 6 or 7 years later, that actually came true. So the Barclays Center has a really, really special spot in my heart.
Your last couple of MMA fights have been in Connecticut as opposed to in New York. Did that affect you at all whatsoever? I mean, still in the Northeast, obviously.
Well, because I had so many fights in Brooklyn and in New York City, it's like I got used to, the weight cut, the travel, where the weigh-ins would be, where I get to eat after, things like that, the comfort of being able to do everything from home. But also, like in my own defense, like I earned that right because I sell so many friggin' tickets. It's always like beneficial for the promoters to leave me here because I'm going to fill 150 to 200 seats easy. So it wasn't that I didn't want to go to another place or that it was a huge adjustment, but it was definitely a noticeable difference to not be able to sleep in my bed the night before a fight.
So that was another question that I had. I mean, you are an institution in New York for with Bellator and the boxing world. Is stepping out of there something that you're particularly interested in, or are you like, hey, I'll stick with the recipe that's working?
Well, the promoters like to keep me in New York because that's where I sell tickets. And in the boxing community, I'm not making money anywhere else. I mean, honestly, like, were you going to put me in a venue in, Mississippi? Would I even expect to make as much money as I would make at Boxing at the Garden on one of the bigger shows, right? So when people have criticized me and say, oh, well, you never fought here, you never fought there, I'm like, what am I going to turn down the Barclays Center to go fight in some movie theater? So I've always kind of just held the respect that if it makes dollars, it makes sense. If they can give me a fight at a movie theater in Tennessee, happy to take it. Pay me more than Madison Square Garden or the Barclays Center,
I mentioned how much you fought early in your MMA career, like those first 8 months, and I think that kind of surprised some people. I know it did me because you were just jumping right in. You took that break off, and what kind of a break is it? You've been boxing since then. What have you learned on the MMA side of things, maybe from a mental aspect, since you haven't been in the cage nonstop and you've been over in the ring?
I've learned that boxing is more of a dance and because I'm so experienced in it and I've been in the ring with so many different boxers, it's like nobody can surprise me. When it comes to MMA, like, you have to do what you know how to do, and if that fails, you just have to, like, take it to the street, I've learned that, in boxing, you can't get emotional. In MMA, you almost have to.